In the pitch-black darkness of Surigao Strait, our radar screens painted a picture that the Japanese couldn't see. Enemy battleships steaming directly into our guns like moths drawn to flame. Through the green glow of my Mark 8 fire control radar, I watched two massive blips representing the pride of the Imperial Japanese Navy sailing unknowingly toward their destruction. They were firing blindly into the night while we tracked their every movement with electronic precision. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, Fire Control Officer aboard the heavy cruiser USS Louisville, and I witnessed the moment when American radar technology revolutionized naval warfare forever. The date was October 25, 1944, and the Battle of Lake Gulf was reaching its climax in the waters off the Philippines. For 3 days, the largest naval engagement in history had raged across multiple theaters, but tonight would see its most decisive action. Admiral Jesse Oldendorf had positioned his battle line across the northern entrance to Surigao Strait. 6 battleships and 8 cruisers equipped with the most advanced radar fire control systems ever deployed in combat. I stood in the Combat Information Center of USS Louisville, surrounded by the humming electronics that gave us eyes in the darkness. The CIC was the nerve center of the ship, a cramped compartment filled with radar scopes, plotting tables, and communication equipment. Green light from the radar screens cast an eerie glow over the faces of my operators as they tracked the approaching Japanese fleet. Contact bearing 045, range 28,000 yards, called radar operator First Class Tommy Rodriguez from his position at the Mark 8 fire control radar. Tommy was a 22-year-old electronics specialist from San Antonio who could read a radar scope like a book. 2 large contacts, probably battleships with multiple smaller escorts. I leaned over his shoulder to study the display. The Mark 8 radar was a marvel of American technology, capable of tracking targets at ranges exceeding 30,000 yards and directing our 8-inch guns with unprecedented accuracy. What I saw on that screen would have been impossible just 2 years earlier. A clear, detailed picture of enemy ships moving through total darkness. Plot their course and speed, I ordered, and get me a firing solution. Around me, the fire control team sprang into action. The Mark 8 system integrated radar tracking with mechanical computers that calculated range, bearing, and deflection in real time. While the Japanese were firing blind volleys into the night, hoping to hit something, we could place our shells exactly where we wanted them. The Japanese Southern Force, commanded by Vice Admiral Shoji Nishimura, was steaming north through Surigao Strait in a desperate attempt to disrupt the American landings on Lake. Intelligence had identified his force as consisting of the battleships Yamashiro and Fuso, the heavy cruiser Mogami, and 4 destroyers. They were sailing into a trap that had been set using the most advanced electronic warfare technology of the age. Captain Morrison to CIC, came the voice of Captain Rex McCrary over the intercom. McCrary was a veteran naval officer who had commanded Louisville through some of the fiercest battles in the Pacific. "What's the picture down there?" "We have solid radar contact on the Japanese battle line." "Captain," I replied into the microphone. 2 battleships and escorts, range closing to 25,000 yards. Fire control solution locked and ready. "Outstanding work, Jack." "Stand by for Admiral Oldendorf's signal to commence firing." The beauty of our radar-directed fire control system was its precision. While the Japanese ships were silhouetted against the stars, struggling to identify targets in the darkness, our Mark 8 radar painted a perfect picture of their formation. Every ship, every course change, every speed adjustment was tracked and plotted with electronic accuracy. "Range now 22,000 yards and closing," Rodriguez reported. "Lead battleship maintaining course 010. Speed 20 knots. I could feel the tension building in the CIC as we waited for the order to open fire. This would be the first time in naval history that radar fire control would be used in a major surface engagement. The technology that American scientists and engineers had developed in laboratories and testing ranges was about to face its ultimate test against the Imperial Japanese Navy. The Japanese had built their Pacific strategy around superior night fighting capabilities. Their sailors were trained to fight in darkness, using superior optics and aggressive tactics to overcome numerically superior forces. At the Battle of Surigao Island in 1942, they had demonstrated their mastery of night combat by sinking 4 Allied cruisers without losing a single ship of their own. But that was before radar changed everything. All ships, this is Admiral Oldendorf, came the voice over the radio at 0351 hours. Commence firing. The night erupted in flame as 32 American warships opened fire simultaneously. From my position in the CIC, I could hear the deep rumble of Louisville's 8-inch guns firing in salvo. But unlike previous night battles, where ships fired at muzzle flashes and shadows, every round was directed by radar with scientific precision. First salvo on target, Rodriguez called out, watching the fall of shot on his radar screen. Range 21,000 yards, bearing steady. Through the plotting room periscope, I caught a glimpse of the chaos on the surface. The Japanese battleship Yamashiro was bracketed by shell splashes as dozens of radar-guided projectiles converged on her position. Her return fire was sporadic and wildly inaccurate. They were shooting at gun flashes while we were tracking them electronically. The Mark 8 fire control radar automatically adjusted for target movement, wind conditions, and ballistic factors that would have taken human gunners precious minutes to calculate. Our rate of accurate fire was 3 times faster than anything the Japanese could achieve with optical rangefinders in the darkness. Second salvo, direct hits on the lead battleship, Rodriguez reported with excitement in his voice. She's slowing and taking on a list to port. What the Japanese commanders couldn't understand was how American ships were achieving such devastating accuracy in complete darkness. Their lookouts reported no searchlights, no illumination rounds, nothing to explain how enemy shells were finding their targets with such precision. It was as if the Americans could see through the night itself. And in a sense, we could. The Mark 8 radar sent out radio pulses that bounced off enemy ships and returned to our receivers, creating a detailed electronic picture of the battlefield. While Japanese optical equipment was useless in the darkness, our radar operators could track multiple targets simultaneously and direct accurate fire against all of them. Third and fourth salvos on target, came the report. The battleship is burning and losing way. Secondary explosions visible on radar. The battleship Yamashiro, Admiral Nishimura's flagship, was taking a devastating pounding from radar-directed fire. American cruisers and battleships were crossing her T formation, delivering plunging fire from multiple directions while she struggled to return effective fire in the darkness. It was a textbook naval engagement, except that the textbook had been rewritten by American radar technology. Contact bearing 060, range 19,000 yards, Rodriguez called out. Second battleship attempting to turn away. This was the Fuso, sister ship to Yamashiro, and equally doomed by her inability to fight effectively in darkness. Our radar tracked her every movement as she tried to maneuver out of the killing zone. But there was no escape from electronic eyes that could see for miles through the night. Shift fire to the second battleship, I ordered. All guns. New target bearing 060. The fire control computer automatically calculated the new firing solution, adjusting for the target's course and speed. Within seconds, Louisville's guns were trained on Fuso and ready to deliver accurate fire at a range where the Japanese ship couldn't even see us. The psychological impact on the Japanese was as devastating as the physical damage. Their sailors had trained for years to fight in darkness, developing night vision and learning to identify targets by silhouette and sound. But radar made all of their training obsolete. They were fighting an enemy who could see them perfectly while remaining invisible themselves. Direct hits on the second battleship, Rodriguez reported. She's taking heavy damage and falling out of formation. Through intercepted radio communications, we could hear the confusion and desperation in Japanese transmissions. Orders were being shouted in Japanese as their commanders tried to understand how American ships were achieving such impossible accuracy. Some reports suggested they believed they were facing a new type of secret weapon. They were right. Radar was indeed a secret weapon, though not in the way they imagined. It was the product of American scientific research, industrial capacity, and technological innovation that had transformed naval warfare as fundamentally as the introduction of rifled guns or steel armor. Enemy destroyer attempting torpedo attack, came a report from the destroyer screen. Range 8,000 yards and closing fast. This was exactly the kind of situation where Japan's night fighting expertise had previously proven decisive. Fast destroyers making high-speed torpedo runs in darkness had been one of their most effective tactics. But radar changed the equation completely. All secondary batteries, engage the destroyer, I ordered. Fire control has solid radar contact. Louisville's 5-inch guns swiveled toward the attacking destroyer, guided by the same radar that was directing our main battery. The Japanese ship was making over 30 knots, weaving through the darkness in an attempt to close to torpedo range. But our radar tracked every turn and course change with electronic precision. The destroyer took multiple direct hits from radar-directed fire and exploded in a ball of flame that briefly illuminated the entire strait. Her torpedo attack had been stopped cold by American technology that could track and engage high-speed targets in complete darkness. That's 3 enemy ships confirmed sunk, Rodriguez reported. I'm showing multiple contacts dead in the water or sinking. The slaughter continued for another hour as American radar-directed guns systematically destroyed the Japanese southern force. Battleships, cruisers, and destroyers that had once ruled the Pacific were reduced to burning hulks by weapons they couldn't see and couldn't effectively engage. The cruiser Mogami, attempting to retreat down the strait, was caught by radar-guided fire from multiple American ships. Her superstructure was shattered by accurate salvos that found their mark despite the darkness and smoke. The Japanese heavy cruiser, once considered one of the most formidable warships in the Pacific, was reduced to a flaming wreck in less than 30 minutes. Final enemy contact bearing 180. Range increasing, Rodriguez called out. Looks like one destroyer trying to escape to the south. Let her go, I decided. She can tell them what happened here. Indeed, that lone surviving destroyer would carry back to Japan the news that American radar technology had made traditional naval warfare obsolete. The Imperial Japanese Navy, which had dominated the Pacific through superior night fighting tactics, had been crushed by an enemy who could see in the dark. The statistics from the Battle of Surigao Strait were staggering. The Japanese southern force had been virtually annihilated, with both battleships sunk, 1 cruiser destroyed, and 3 of 4 destroyers sent to the bottom. American losses were minimal, 1 destroyer damaged and fewer than 50 casualties total. But the numbers only told part of the story. What had really been destroyed that night was Japanese confidence in their naval superiority. For 3 years, they had relied on superior night fighting capabilities to overcome American numerical advantages. Now they faced an enemy armed with technology that made darkness irrelevant. Ceasefire. Ceasefire, came Admiral Oldendorf's voice over the radio as dawn began to break over Surigao Strait. All ships report damage and ammunition expenditure. As the sun rose, we could see the full extent of the destruction our radar-directed guns had inflicted. Oil slicks and debris fields marked where proud Japanese warships had met their end. Survivors clung to wreckage in the oil-stained waters, testimony to the devastating effectiveness of American electronic warfare. Damage report shows minor splinter damage to superstructure, came the report from Louisville's damage control officer. All main battery guns operational. All radar systems functioning normally. We had fought a major naval engagement and emerged virtually unscathed. The Mark 8 fire control radar had performed flawlessly, delivering accurate fire throughout the battle while tracking multiple targets simultaneously. American technology had proven itself in the ultimate test of combat. In the days that followed, intelligence reports would reveal the full impact offered our technology on Japanese naval thinking. Intercepted communications showed complete bewilderment at American gunnery accuracy in darkness. Some Japanese officers reported that American ships seemed to be equipped with magical night vision that allowed them to see through darkness itself. The reality was even more revolutionary than magic. American scientists had harnessed radio waves to create electronic eyes that could see farther and more clearly than any human lookout. The Mark 8 fire control system represented the convergence of radar technology, mechanical computation, and precision engineering that gave American ships an overwhelming advantage in naval combat. Captain McCrary held a wardroom briefing the morning after the battle to discuss what we had accomplished. His weathered face showed the satisfaction of a naval officer who had witnessed history in the making. "Gentlemen, what happened last night represents a fundamental change in naval warfare," he began. "For the first time in history, An entire enemy battle line was destroyed by radar-directed fire. The Japanese came into Surigao Strait expecting a traditional night engagement. Instead, they fancied technology that made their tactical advantages obsolete. He paused, looking around the table at his officers. Lieutenant Commander Morrison, I want you to prepare a detailed report on the performance of our fire control systems. This information will be crucial for future operations. Aye, aye, Captain, I replied. The Mark 8 radar exceeded all expectations. We maintained accurate fire control throughout the engagement, even while tracking multiple targets simultaneously. The technical performance data was impressive. Our fire control radar had tracked targets at ranges exceeding 25,000 yards, maintained lock-on throughout high-speed maneuvering, and directed accurate fire despite darkness, smoke, and battle damage. The system's reliability had been perfect, not a single malfunction during 4 hours of continuous operation. But the strategic implications were even more significant. The Battle of Surigao Strait marked the end of the battleship era and the beginning of electronic warfare. Ships equipped with advanced radar could engage and destroy enemies at ranges where traditional optical fire control was useless. The Japanese had learned this lesson too late. Their naval strategy had been built around night fighting superiority that became meaningless when faced with radar technology. American industrial capacity had produced not just more ships, but better ships equipped with revolutionary electronic systems. Over the following weeks, as we continued operations in the Philippines, the impact of radar technology became even more apparent. Japanese ships avoided night engagements, knowing they faced an enemy who could see in the darkness. Their aircraft altered attack patterns to avoid radar-controlled anti-aircraft fire. The psychological effect was as important as the tactical advantage. We fundamentally changed how naval warfare is conducted, observed Lieutenant Paul Chen, our electronics officer, during one of our evening discussions. Chen was a recent graduate of the Naval Academy who had specialized in the new field of electronic warfare. Radar has made optical rangefinding obsolete, just like rifled guns made smooth-bore cannons obsolete. He was absolutely right. The Mark 8 fire control system represented the same kind of technological revolution that had transformed naval warfare in the past. Steel armor had made wooden ships obsolete. Steam power had replaced sail. Now, radar was making traditional gunnery methods obsolete. The Japanese response to American radar superiority was telling. Intelligence reports showed they were desperately trying to develop their own electronic warfare capabilities, but they lacked the industrial base and scientific infrastructure to match American technology. Their radar systems were primitive compared to our Mark 8, and their fire control computers were generations behind our mechanical calculators. Moreover, American radar technology was improving rapidly. New systems coming online could track aircraft and surface targets simultaneously, direct both main battery and anti-aircraft fire, and coordinate attacks by multiple ships. The technological gap was widening, not narrowing. I remember one particularly impressive demonstration of radar capability during a shore bombardment mission near Lincoln Gulf. Japanese coastal artillery was firing at our ships from concealed positions in the jungle, using traditional optical methods to spot their targets. Our radar-directed guns could pinpoint their muzzle flashes and return accurate counter-battery fire within seconds. Enemy battery bearing 095. Range 14,000 yards. Rodriguez reported from his radar scope. Flash detected and plotted. All guns, counter-battery fire, I ordered. Continuous fire until target is suppressed. Within minutes, Louisville's 8-inch guns had silenced the Japanese battery with precision fire directed by radar. The enemy gunners, trained to fight using traditional methods, had no answer for electronic systems that could track their muzzle flashes and direct devastating return fire. This pattern repeated itself throughout the Philippines campaign. Japanese forces, no matter how well trained or courageously led, could not overcome American technological superiority. Radar-directed naval gunfire was so accurate that it could support infantry attacks with precision previously impossible in amphibious operations. The strategic impact extended beyond individual battles. Japanese naval commanders, knowing they faced enemies equipped with superior radar systems, became increasingly reluctant to engage in surface actions. The Imperial Japanese Navy, once the most aggressive naval force in the Pacific, began avoiding contact whenever possible. This defensive mindset represented a complete reversal of Japanese naval doctrine. For decades, they had trained for decisive surface engagements where superior seamanship and fighting spirit would overcome material disadvantages. But radar technology had made material superiority decisive. American electronic warfare capabilities continued to expand throughout 1945. New radar systems could detect aircraft at ranges exceeding 100 miles, direct fighter intercepts with unprecedented accuracy, and coordinate complex fleet movements in all weather conditions. The technological advantage that had been demonstrated at Surigao Strait became an overwhelming superiority in all aspects of naval warfare. By the time Japan surrendered in August 1945, their navy had been reduced to a coastal defense force hiding in port. The ships that remained afloat lacked the electronic systems necessary to engage American forces effectively. Radar technology had not just won individual battles, it had won the war at sea. Standing on Louisville's bridge as we sailed into Tokyo Bay for the surrender ceremony, I reflected on how completely radar had transformed naval warfare. The Mark 8 fire control system that had guided our guns at Surigao Strait represented more than just a technical achievement. It symbolized American industrial and scientific superiority that had proven decisive in the Pacific War. The Japanese officers who came aboard for the surrender negotiations were clearly impressed by the electronic equipment visible throughout our ship. Radar antennas, fire control directors, and communication systems represented technology they had never been able to match. One Japanese captain, speaking through an interpreter, admitted that American radar capabilities had made resistance hopeless. "Your electronic eyes see too far and too clearly," he said. "Our ships became targets that could not hide and could not fight back effectively." His assessment was accurate. American radar technology had given us the ability to engage enemies at ranges where they couldn't return effective fire, track multiple targets simultaneously, and maintain accurate fire control in all weather conditions. These capabilities had proven decisive in every major naval engagement of the Pacific War. The technical specifications of our Mark 8 fire control radar were impressive by any standard. The system could track targets at ranges exceeding 30,000 yards, maintain lock-on during high-speed maneuvering, and direct accurate fire from multiple gun mounts simultaneously. Its mechanical computer could calculate firing solutions faster than any human operator, adjusting for wind, target movement, and ballistic factors in real time. But the strategic implications were even more significant. Radar technology had fundamentally altered the balance of naval power, making traditional advantages like superior training and aggressive tactics less important than electronic capabilities. The nation with the best radar systems would dominate naval warfare, regardless of other factors. American investment in radar research and development had paid enormous dividends. The billions of dollars spent on electronic warfare programs had produced technology that gave American forces overwhelming advantages in combat. Every major naval victory in the Pacific had been achieved with the support of radar-directed weapon systems. The Japanese had learned this lesson through bitter experience. Their attempts to engage American forces in traditional surface actions had resulted in catastrophic losses whenever radar-equipped ships were involved. The Battle of Surigao Strait had been the most dramatic example, but similar patterns had been repeated throughout the Pacific campaign. Intelligence reports after the war revealed the full extent of Japanese disadvantage in electronic warfare. Their radar systems were primitive by American standards, their fire control computers were mechanical rather than electronic, and their operators lacked the training necessary to use even basic radar equipment effectively. More importantly, Japanese industrial capacity could never have matched American production of electronic systems. The complex manufacturing processes required for radar components demanded precision machinery, skilled technicians, and quality control standards that Japanese industry could not achieve during wartime conditions. American radar technology had not just won battles, It had demonstrated the decisive importance of scientific research and industrial capacity in modern warfare. The Mark 8 fire control system represented the best of American engineering, combining theoretical knowledge with practical application to create weapon systems that were simply superior to anything the enemy could field. As Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison, fire control officer aboard USS Louisville, I had been privileged to witness this technological revolution firsthand. The radar screens in our Combat Information Center had shown us a new way of fighting naval battles, one based on electronic precision rather than traditional seamanship. The green glow of those radar displays had illuminated more than just enemy ship positions. They had shown us the future of naval warfare, where electronic systems would be more important than guns, armor, or speed. The Navy that controlled the electromagnetic spectrum would control the seas. The Battle of Surigao Strait had proven that American radar technology could track, engage, and destroy enemy forces with unprecedented effectiveness. Japanese battleships that had once been considered invincible had been reduced to burning hulks by weapons they couldn't see and couldn't effectively return fire against. But radar had done more than just sink ships. It had broken the spirit of the Imperial Japanese Navy, demonstrating that American technological superiority made traditional naval tactics obsolete. No amount of courage or skill could overcome the advantage of electronic eyes that could see through darkness and guide weapons with scientific precision. The war had ended with American radar-equipped ships controlling every sea lane in the Pacific. Japanese naval forces, those that survived, were confined to port by an enemy whose electronic capabilities made resistance futile. Radar technology had achieved what no previous weapons system had managed: complete and absolute dominance of naval warfare. As we sailed home to the United States in the autumn of 1945, I knew that we had witnessed the birth of a new era in military technology. The radar systems that had guided our guns at Surigao Strait were just the beginning. Future weapons would be even more dependent on electronic systems, even more precise in their application, and even more decisive in their effects. The Japanese had learned that lesson in the burning waters of Surigao Strait, where their proud battleships had been destroyed by an enemy who could see in the darkness. American radar technology had not just won a battle, it had revolutionized warfare itself, proving that electronic precision could overcome any traditional advantage in the modern age of combat.